I'm excited to see how they do. I have a lot of my hopes pinned on TL.
Do not tell me that Scrim stuff right after you told me 100 Thieves were stomping Scrim. Don't tell me the exact same setup here
Would
for
you
this
rather
team.
I tell you that they're getting absolutely just stomped every game? FF
Any,
5 minutes.
Tell me anything and everything.
Tell me
that
they're
is,
learning a lot.
Hello and welcome to the dive driven by IKEA remote version, season 8, episode 31. Today we are going to talk about Worlds, and we are recording this right after the final play-ins games have been played.
Oh yeah.
And or not played, you know, if you want to wipe that from your memory for 100 Thieves
I
fans.
would prefer to do that.
We'll get into the 100 Thieves dilemma later. And kind of save that pain for a little later, but we can just kick it off because there's actually a big discussion on the world song too, so we can kind of have some general Worlds discussion.
I mean, for me, like music video aside, I thought the song is sick. Like this is one of my favorite world songs ever. Like I'm a big Linkin Park fan. I like rock. I love the song. I feel like it fits Worlds really, really well. I have been listening to that song pretty much on repeat since it came out. I also really like the other one that the new singer's name is Emily, I think. I can't remember. Yeah. But it's like the Emptiest Machine, I think is the other one that they released as well. So I've been really liking all the Linkin Park stuff. You know, I know there's like a lot of like mixed feelings on having a new singer after Chester, I believe. So but I love it. I think the song is a banger. So I'm super happy, and I also like that we're doing different stuff, right? Like, you know, they are mixing it up. We've had K-pop, we've had all kinds of different stuff, so I think it's cool to come back some rock.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it as well. I've almost got to the point where I've listened to it too much on repeat that I'm like starting to like have diminishing returns. Yeah, I'm kind of burning myself out a little faster than I probably should, but it's so good. Like you said, huge Linkin Park fan myself, and I actually really like the video with it too. I know a lot of people have been memeing that's like, you know, Faker's quote, like the third world championship was for me, the fourth was for Linkin Park. But
yeah, his quote.
I don't know. It's a music video, right? It's like, I don't know. I think it's fine. And the part where Faker comes out is actually just so cool. That's honestly one of the biggest reasons why I was watching it so much, is that it's just chills all over. Like that is just one of the coolest moments.
Yeah, the Azir overlay.
Yeah, dude, he like throws off his cloak and just he looks like a boss from a game, you know, like a Dark Souls, just walking down the stairs. Like, oh, it's just so much Riz.
Yeah, so much Riz.
I mean,
I thought you were gonna go like Aura or something, you know, like
all the above, man.
Meteos
all
is
the
just
above.
Swooning, seeing the Faker is here.
Everyone is, man. I think everybody is.
Faker's got it all. I mean, I definitely agree with you guys on at least the music point. I was a huge fan of Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory, and Meteora, their first two albums. Were like some of my first two CDs that I just like spam listened to. So I really liked the beginning portions of the song. Like, you know, in the end or the middle / end where she does the super long, like extreme scream. That one was the first part of the song where it started to feel like different Linkin Park to me, not like original Linkin Park. It's a whole like the beginning of the song, I was like, oh my god, yeah, like wow, like this is you know, very much a Linkin Park song. You know, but you know, all the discussion on, you know, taking a very long time to get a new singer, and all the Scientology stuff surrounding the new singer is that's off the deeper end for me. So I definitely like started listening to a bunch of Linkin Park playlists after this song. That kind of like inspired me, because the beginning of it, I was like, oh my god, I gotta listen to like Numb now, and like you know, went down that whole pathway. And so I actually didn't burn myself out on this song because I just listened to so much older Linkin Park stuff. So yeah, I'm set up. I'm ready to come in hot for Worlds.
I mean, they have so many bangers. I was doing the same thing. I feel like probably so many people went back and just listened to all the old Linkin
Yeah.
Park songs and stuff. Um, I would say I always find this funny, and I don't know. I mean, there's people have such crazy expectations around world songs. Like it's been built up so much that I feel like because maybe I came from like smaller esports and stuff like that where you don't get anything like this, I've always just thought it was so cool that there was songs. So I guess my expectations maybe aren't as high as other people, or aren't as like I don't have as like specific of an idea of like what I want it to be because legit every world song I've actually enjoyed. Like I know everyone hates on Ignite and says Ignite is trash, and like I even kind of liked Ignite. Like I'm not gonna lie. So
Dude, that one has grown on me. I was
Yeah.
not a huge fan of it on release. I will say it's still probably lower on my world song tier list.
mine
But
too.
yeah, dude, I've been listening to Worlds playlists, and when Ignite comes on, like I'm kind of jamming to it. It's like it's kind of grown on me.
And like Star Walking, everyone was hating on that.
I
and,
really like Star Walking.
I thought Star Walking was kind of a bop. Like I was enjoying it. I mean, I got that one. Maybe wasn't a good like anthem for Worlds. As far as like did it fit the tone of Worlds? Maybe not. But like I've enjoyed legit all the songs. So I've been loving it. My only complaint about the music video was watching it through. I legit couldn't tell who some of the players were.
That's fair.
Like
Yeah.
I legitimately didn't realize it was Bin until like I saw BLG flag and then it's a Jax and like things like I had to use kind of like context clues. But some of the
Did
players I
you
really couldn't tell.
Did you see that quote from Deft when he was watching it
Yeah.
on stream where
I
he
thought
thought
kinda
it was
looked like
himself?
Def.
Why do I have a Jax lamppost? Yeah, that's super funny. I didn't realize Chovy was in it
Yeah.
until someone told me. Like that one definitely was hard to make out. I thought seeing Masu was super cool though.
I like that a
I remember
lot.
I was watching it with Sneaky when it first came out, and I was like, "Is that Masu?" He's like, "Dude, there's no way they would put Masu in this video." But then like we watched it again, and he's got the FlyQuest banner, like his little coin.
Yeah,
It's just so
necklace,
cool. Like they make him look like a total badass, and yeah, it's cool to see some young NA talent up there.
Yeah, I
he
mean,
got a
it's
lot of
really
screen
surprising.
time too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. He was kicking everyone's ass.
Yeah, it's sick. I mean, like you said, like I was kind of. I mean, I was like, it can't be anyone else on FlyQuest because it doesn't look remotely like anyone else. So I was like, it has to be Masu, right? And then, but I was kind of thinking the same thing as you guys, where it's like, oh well, Masu isn't like an international star. If it was anyone from them, I thought it was gonna be like Inspired or Weibo or something like that. But I thought it was really cool that they did, a young rookie who has a really cool story, and they had those details of him with like the Iraqi 10-cent coin that he wears, that his uncle gave him. Like that was in. I don't know if it was actually included in Drive, but it was clearly recorded
It
from
was.
Drive.
It was.
Was it? Okay, because
Yeah.
I thought I watched Drive back and I couldn't find that point, but I know that at finals we had an interview with him saying it, and it was like clearly from that shoot. So I wasn't actually sure if it was like part of it. Maybe I just missed it. But anyway, but yeah, it's a really cool story and really cool detail, which is always something that I'm pretty impressed with the music videos.
Did you guys see the Twitter thread from Shakarez where he goes through all the Easter eggs in the video?
That
was a
seen them in
really
the
cool
past,
thread.
but I didn't actually read the one this year yet.
Yeah, I don't remember all of them, but I went through and looked, and they have a lot of detail in the video. So
Yeah.
I blame that for why I watched it so many times.
Blame. Yeah,
It's a banger.
the one thing I did as takeaway from it as kind of a negative though was I did agree with the overwhelming people that were talking about how often the band was shown and how it was just that it also cut away from action that made it harder to follow.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with showing the band. I think they should, especially because it's Linkin Park and Linkin Park is so big. And actually,
I think
like
it's their official music video for it too, is my
yeah,
understanding.
and there's like it's not only is it like World's anthem and a lot of hype here. There's a lot of hype around like Chester is irreplaceable, but like they finally get another singer, and so there's a big part of like Linkin Park like new version or whatever also. So I would be down showing them for a little bit, but it's just that it broke me out of the combat a lot and made it harder for me to fully get into the combat. Whereas with other Worlds videos that we've had that have had combat like that and have been like, scaling the mountain and stuff, you're like feeling every battle and you're like, oh, who's going to pop out next, type of thing. And keeps it
like,
kind of very fluid.
I fully get the complaints of it. I guess it just didn't really bother me. Like I said, maybe I just have lower expectations or I'm easier to please. But also, it's like, I feel like everyone compares to Rise, because to me, Rise is the greatest one ever for the music video. Like, it's not close, right? At least I think. But like, I actually thought this music video was pretty good compared to a lot of them. Like, I liked it way more than the Star Walking one. I liked it more than a lot of them, actually. Like, I thought it was pretty cool. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too easy to please, but I actually really enjoyed it. So even though I get it, like, they definitely could have showed the band less, maybe, and more focus on the action. I guess it just didn't really bother me because I was just like, ooh, Linkin Park song.
All right. Well, time for the pain. Time for the pain then.
Can we skip this part?
We are fresh. I actually stayed up all night. Soon. I stayed up all night because we're like, oh, we're going to record the dive right after the play-ins game. So I was like, all right, sweet. I'm going to full in on world schedule. Here we go. Going to watch them all. And then, I'm watching the first match and I'm like, oh shit, this is crazy. It's a LATAM and Brazil and we're fighting for our, Swiss seed here and someone is going to progress and the game is going crazy. And it's like, who's winning? One fight, they're winning, LATAM's going to win, and then they go out, and then Brazil's winning, and they're like, oh my God, all right, I'm ready for the 100 Thieves matchup. And it's a lane swap, and they get absolutely blown out of it. They have zero chance by like 10 minutes. And then, oh my God, it was just such a painful way to, I feel like, get eliminated from Worlds. And like, especially with like, the first series was like so much action and stuff, and then the second series was such a blowout. I'm feeling rough right now.
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible series. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like, if you told me that 100 Thieves got knocked in play-ins, honestly, I wouldn't have been that shocked. But the way in which they did, I think, was pretty shocking and pretty embarrassing. I talked about this even on broadcast before they had played, and like with other people as well. 100 Thieves were the team that I was the most nervous going into play-ins of any team LCS had ever sent in history. So like the fact that they got knocked out, I'm not actually that shocked. The biggest reason, if you're asking why, is that in the past, like, as much as people always meme on like, oh, NA minor region, blah blah blah, we have like a nearly 80% win in play-ins. Like, we always win in play-ins. And to me, the biggest difference is 100 Thieves is a really weak macro team. So like, they are so dependent, I feel like, on actually being able to win early skirmishes and create lane advantages. And if they don't do that, they don't really have an easy way to win the game. Whereas all our other teams in the past that we had sent, I always felt confident that it's like, even if you lost an early skirmish or something, it wasn't just like GG. You could like outplay them on the map. You could actually like set up your objectives better. You could, play a more slow measured game. Because like, you can't just completely disrespect these teams. Like, a lot of these teams, even I remember like Shogun like 2v2 killing Gumayushi and Keria like multiple times and stuff like that. Like, even T1 and the best teams do die to these guys, but then they outplay them on the map usually, and then they win. So it's like, that was my big nervousness going into play-ins. But like 100 Thieves, it felt like didn't show up at all. I mean, this series especially was just straight embarrassing. Like, I have no idea what was going on with some of their objective forces. Like, I think it was the Grubs or the Herald or whatever in the first game where they're going, and it's like literally 30 seconds before they died, I literally said on the cast, oh, they're about to all die. Like, I just didn't understand what they were doing. Like, there was situations where they're completely split from the rest of the team. On one of the ones that they forced, like, Quid was literally in base and they're just walking in 3v4 to die. On the other one, they literally see Gnar getting Mega Gnar bar, full bar above them, and Sniper is like basing or a tower like completely separated from the fight, and they're just walking in, giving the Gnar the free flank, starting it in their face. Like, I don't know what was going on. It was just crazy to me. Like, the objectives were so egregious, like, let alone there's obviously a lot of individual mistakes. I know a lot of people are blaming Ayla for like the flashing the wrong way and dying in the 2v2 and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong, that was rough, but like, I thought it was more rough that they were going for some of these objectives with zero way they could ever win. Like, it was so obvious you're dead if you go there, and they're like, hey, let's go there.
It was pretty rough to watch for sure. It makes me wonder how much of it may have been stage nerves because, they are such a fresh team, a lot of young players on there, and going to Worlds, playing internationally for your first time, it's a huge huge difference from what you're used to. Especially, I think one of the biggest things for me, and that I've seen in other players, is it's not just the stage games, it's also the scrims leading up to the stage games, right? You start playing against other regions. If you're lucky, you'll get games against the really good Korean and Chinese teams. And from a lot of those games, you get legitimate whiplash. You lose so bad, you're like, what just happened? In an attempt to fix what happened in those games, you start doubting yourself, trying to change things that were maybe working for you before. And you just kind of end up looking like a mess. I don't know if that's the case for 100 Thieves, but it definitely has happened to a lot of teams.
So I know I actually talked to a number of people, and from what I heard, it wasn't the case. So LPL and LCK teams just arrived like today. So none of the Western teams got to even scrim them. My understanding, and I don't know if this is just because the LPL and LCK teams thought would be worse practice coming here. I'd heard a number of different things. Some people said that they just like didn't want to go early because they were more comfortable at home. Some people said, oh, it's like an EUS thing. They didn't want to play on the solo queue because they hated it, blah, blah, blah. But they're just getting here now. So like all the teams basically came as late as possible. I think T1 came a little bit earlier, but other teams are literally arriving like this morning, which was like the latest they were allowed to arrive. And I had heard that 100 Thieves was actually doing really well in scrims. And normally they're like a horrible scrim team, right? Like in NA, they're like kind of memed on as like the free win team, along with like maybe energy and stuff in scrims. But they had been doing really well in scrims, so they were actually super confident going into the games before they played R7. I'd heard that they were like beating G2 and beating Fnatic, like beating all the EU teams. Maybe not like every game, but they were like doing well, splitting games or whatever. Was the kind of rumors I was hearing from a few different people. And so, hearing that, I was getting really excited because they were feeling really confident. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's going to be better than I thought. And it was not.
I mean, especially the R7 matchup, they literally scrimmed R7 before they even left, and Sniper gave that interview, and he's like, oh yeah, we dunked on him in the scrims.
On pros, yep.
Exactly, yeah. He was like, and then we just get blasted, and then, he was
so confident.
Yeah. Like you said, though, the biggest thing for me was that they had 4 players that had never been before. So it's a very, very rookie team. Quid, if you remember, like this year has been really good for him, but previous, like back on the double lift roster with 100 Thieves, he was getting flamed all the time, and they actually mentioned multiple times his like stage nerves at that point, and it's something that he had like overcome. So it does kind of like make sense. We're just kind of connecting dots here and making assumptions, but that would also be a factor. But it was like seemed like across the board a lot of that kind of like young first time energy for the team, and so that also kind of tracks if they were more comfortable scrimming teams behind the scenes and stuff and having success. But then in the stage games, really having a rough time. And like you're saying, it's not even just one thing. It's mechanics that we saw failed. It was setups. It was like they would walk to the grubs with no vision and having seen Alistar maybe like 10 seconds before, and then oh bam, Alistar's like comboing River over and over, and you're just like, oh man, if River is taken out at the beginning of a fight, River is their veteran. River's the guy that has been here before, and he's the one that in our interviews in the LCS games, they're like, oh, we found our way when everyone started listening to River's calls. And so if River's getting taken out first, which he got taken out a lot early in this series too, then you're just like, man, their shot calling must be really rough at that point too. They are, and it kind of showed.
Yeah, that last game, that play you're talking about, which was right after Ayla, died from flashing the wrong way bottom. They went to Grubs and they both get Alistair comboed, and then like chat was memeing a lot about how Ayla also comboed River. Like he just used all of his spells at River and
he
died.
on River's head. I didn't understand what that even was. I guess he thought someone was going to jump in or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it sucks as an NA fan watching that, because obviously we want to see our teams do well, but I do understand it from an experience thing. It looked like nerves, absolutely, watching them play. just making mistakes that, I'm sure if they go back and they look at the game when they're not in that high pressure situation, they'll realize the stuff they were doing was pretty troll.
Yeah.
But obviously when you're in it, it feels totally different, and it's not easy to see that clearly. But yeah, just a lot of individual mistakes. And I would say even River and Quid had some of their worst individual performances during this play-ins, because I was, thinking that with this meta shift, moving away from what we've seen almost the whole year of AD carry mid, AP farm jungler, it would probably be good for 100 Thieves, because it felt like that would be the kind of champions that, they could do well with. But it didn't really seem to be the case. River won his first Jarvan game, and then it got banned from him a lot, which was unlucky. But a lot of his other picks, like, he just wasn't really having that impact that we're used to seeing him have, and he was just getting caught out a bunch, dying.
Did you think that in the previous series, though? Because I actually felt like the first 2 series, he was smurfing pretty hard, even in the losses. Like, even when they lost R7, that Viego game, he was like absolutely 1v9, like almost saving the game. Like, I agree today, he was not having any impact in either game, but like the previous 2 series, I actually thought River was smurfing.
He had some decent games for sure. I remember his Wukong game in the previous series being like really, really rough. Like he found almost no good ults the whole series, and was actually just running around feeding. So yeah, I mean, he had some good games for sure. He wasn't, hard inting or whatever, but I think it was definitely lower than his normal level.
Yeah, that's fair. I will also say, like, and I know people are going to say, oh, this is cope and all that stuff, but I actually thought the PSG played way better today than they have in any of the other days. I thought they, like, finally actually figured out the meta, which it was so funny because when they were going to run into 100 Thieves, all these people here were like, oh, like, don't worry, bro, it's free. Like, PSG looks so bad so far. I'm like, yeah, but they like are not idiots. Like, they're going to know that some of their meta reads were wrong, and they're going to change it, right? Like, Game 1, I remember when they played against Pain and they did that like Tristana Rumble MF thing. I'm like, oh my god, this is horrible, and they lost super bad with that. And then I guess it was against Mad. They did the like LeBlanc into Vex thing, and LeBlanc was kind of useless against that and whatever. I just felt like they had a lot of drafts that they kind of like automatically lost almost just from draft, or at least put themselves at a big disadvantage. Today, I thought they actually drafted really well, and I was pretty terrified. Like if they drafted well. I mean, they were the team I thought was going to be the best team in play-ins coming into it. So I thought they played way more to their level. And like Woody was smurfing so hard on Alistar. Like, yeah, 100 Thieves made it easy for them. Yeah, 100 Thieves made a lot of terrible plays. But I thought PSG actually played really, really well.
Yeah, as well, I had a lot of confidence in PSG being able to bounce back from a bad start to this tournament because of what we saw from them at MSI also. I mean, this has been a really big like bounce back year for PSG in general, with last year them not making main stage for either MSI or Worlds, and now they're making main stage for both. It's quite big for PSG, and with it being Maples, last year playing too, it's a pretty hype story for them. So definitely happy for that team. It's just that it's at the cost of quite an embarrassing loss at the hands, for 100 Thieves here. So, I mean, we saw PSG kick out FlyQuest to MSI. Now they kick out 100 Thieves at Worlds. They're kind of kicking us around.
Good thing Maple's retiring. Can't kick us out of the next one. Yeah, I mean, PSG is definitely looking good. I think PSG, if they play, if they kind of like continue and they have a strong read on the meta, they could be a threat for sure. I think definitely people are underestimating them. Obviously, I don't expect them to beat HLE or anything, but like, as we go through, I would not be shocked to see them take out some other teams, like take out some EU or NA teams. Like they're legitimately a really good team. So they are pretty scary. There was also some other pretty surprising stuff, obviously, that happened at play-ins. Mad making it through, no surprise. PSG making it through, no surprise from early qualifications and stuff.
I don't know. Mad making it through might be a bit of a surprise based on past results.
That's fair. They have gotten knocked out of play-ins 2 or maybe 3 times, at least 2. But GAM went through without dropping a single game, which was obviously really, really nice for them. And it was kind of crazy to me, just like given my pre-tournament expectations, that we had a qualification match between R7 and PNG. Those are the two teams that I thought were by far the worst coming into play-ins. And everyone I talked to who prepped them and watched them thought they were by far the worst. And so like those teams, I think really showed up in a pretty big way. Pain, PSG, I think had a terrible meta read and didn't play as well in the first series, but like Pain was literally one team fight away from beating PSG in that first series. It was literally like a soul fight or an elder fight or whatever it was, and they lost 5v4 in that fight to lose series, right? So like they almost beat PSG. I think R7 definitely like threw a lot in this final game, but it was cool to see they got really far. They won their first ever international series at Worlds. And this is the first time that CB Law has made it to the Swiss stage in 8 years, and the first time that Pain has made it there in 9 years. So obviously it was like a pretty historic series for both of these regions, which are obviously part of the big changes that are coming to Americas. So I think it's like pretty cool that they both were able to show up and you know like have some good performances. But yeah, I was surprised by some of the individual performances, and thought some of these players like really showed up. I thought Kaney was like actually really good for R7. He super impressed me. Titan I think played really well for Pain and like was a big standout player for them. So it's kind of cool seeing some of the big surprises.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying. Pain was a lot of fun to watch, and I'm really happy they went through. I think that game 3 of R7 versus Pain was probably my favorite game of play-ins. You know, obviously there was a lot of throwing going on, but how often do you get a game that's 40 minutes or so and it's actually just back and forth the entire game? You don't know who's going to win. It's just throws after throws. But I mean, part of it was throwing, part of it was, you know, outplays and whatnot. I don't think it was a super low level of play or anything like that. I really enjoyed that game. That was pretty sick.
I did too, man. Some of those, like Summit Renekton was looking like a mega boss in some of these team fights where he's just like flashing in the middle and like murdering them, you know, getting the stun on the enemy, you know, fed 80 carry and giving like, I was like getting so hyped for R7 because, you know, even just their victory over 100 Thieves was super huge for them. But then, you know, getting really close with Pain here and getting close to qualifying for Swiss was such a big deal. You could see it every time the cam went to the coaches too.
Yeah.
I mean, for both sides, for both sides, like that's another thing. It was like the gameplay was very close. The game went super late. There was very high pressure objectives. And then also there's so much stakes on this for both regions. It's like, that's why I still have energy right now, even though it's like stayed up all night. That's why I was like went into the next series, you know, with such a kind of like high expectations. But yeah, Pain definitely deserved it. You know, definitely you know, super hyped for them as well. You mentioned GAM too. I actually was like really impressed that they have been able to fully like integrate, you know, Easy Love and stuff. Like when they had to like throw this team together with all the stuff that happened in VCS, you know, it was pretty rough at first, but you know, they even brought out Levi's Shyvana and he did the classic classic farm clear. Every Shyvana game he did the same farm clear that the Wolves, Raptors, Krugs into spawn on level 5 when grubs are up there, and either you get your grubs and you get your level 6 for Shyvana, or enemy team comes to chase you off grubs and then you just run bottom and grab the first dragon also, and then you got dragon bonus. And every time he was able to keep his economy up and be either Sojin for their fight or Sojin plus Leandries like ahead of the item curve. And it was really cool because like the only other Shyvana talk coming into Worlds was like memeing on Peanut and stuff, and his teammates begging him not to play it again. So like that was super fun, and that's what you love about GAM, right? Is the like OG GAM where he was like power clearing Nocturne and like crazy jungle stuff coming from this team. So I'm excited to see what they can do as well in Swiss. So yeah, we got GAM, we got Pain in there.
I thought Kiyo was really smurfing, by the way, too. Like
yeah.
After after Summit to like Giga Gap Sniper in the lanes in the first series, I know everyone was like he's pretty high on Snipers or Summit's lane. Obviously, like he's always been known for his lane. Yeah, kind of blasted him. Like he was, I felt like he was way more impactful in that series, and I was able to easily hold him even, if not put him behind in lane. So I think they have some like really strong individual players.
Yeah, talking about the jungle meta real quick, I bet you're feeling pretty good, Kobe, with all this Skarner coming out, because that's not something I expected.
Yeah.
We did see some games where Skarner looked pretty good, but I don't know. I think he's viable, but I'm not sold on him being, first pick or ban champion, because so many of these games you just see Skarner run through a wall and then just sit in front of the enemy's team and be a punching bag and just actually get beat to death. He's kind of slow, doesn't really do damage, so I'm not totally sold on it, but to your credit, they are playing him, and
Most
he has
banned
looked pretty good in
champion.
some games.
Most banned champion in play-ins so far, in the tournament so far. But yeah, I mean, it's like we could talk about the meta overall as well. It's like a good point you bring up, because there's like another tank jungler where Sejuani didn't get hurt very much. Maokai got nerfs, but Maokai is also still getting spam. So the jungle meta is I think looks pretty successful.
We got a lot of variety.
Yeah, we're getting Wukong, we're getting Vi. I still have hopes that on some of these teams where we have really good Nidalee players too, like we're going to get some super sick Nidalee games.
So I played it twice, and then there are other games it was just banned against them. So we even got that. We got 14 different junglers.
Yeah, I feel like there was a bunch of different styles of it too. So I feel like the flexible junglers are going to get rewarded here.
Yeah, I mean, 14 different jungle picks, 14 different mid lane picks, 12 different AD carries, 11 different supports, and 12 different top laners. So for play-ins, that's pretty damn good, I feel like, already. Felt like there was a lot of flexibility. I will say, if there's anything I have to complain about, it's probably the top lane's just like the exact same. It's still kind of just like Cassante Renekton. And maybe that will change, and maybe there'll be more variety. I was also pretty surprised that Rumble was as popular as it was, because I thought those Rumble nerfs were like fat. Like 20 damage off your Flame Spitter rank 1 seems so big, and then the Electro Harpoon nerfs as well. Like I thought it was pretty dead. It might be one of those things where it's just like a comfort pick for some of the playing teams, so we're not going to see as much in main stage. But I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait a little bit, because every year in these tournaments, I've noticed that the play-in meta is usually pretty far removed from what actually ends up being the world's meta, especially toward the bracket stage and the end of it. Mm-hmm. Because, for one, I think the beginning is always the most interesting, because you see all these teams coming in with their own strategies from their own regions, and, some of them will scrim a little bit, but no one really knows what's an actual good pick. Maybe there's something that was like a scrim bait pick or whatnot. And so I do think we'll see a lot of variety at the beginning, but probably at some point people will like settle on, okay, this is the best. And I don't really know what it's going to be. I imagine it's probably going to look kind of like standard team comps with like mage mid, tank jungler, like you were saying, Cassante, Renekton, Nard, top type stuff. But yeah, we'll see. Who really knows?
I mean, it's going to be extra interesting, I think, in the first week, because there's such different scrim bubbles. Like, yeah, there's a couple days before Swiss starts, but the LPL-LCK teams are literally just arriving. And, they have scrimmed against each other all this time, and the Western teams have been scrimming against each other all this time. So it's possible that they come in with completely different meta reads, and we might get some, like, really interesting differences.
What do you guys think Syndra is overrated already? Because I've liked the pressure picks into Syndra, and Syndra like having a harder time on side lanes and stuff. When the Ahri was picked into it. If like you're playing side lanes a lot more, we have some very good Syndra players coming as well, still to arrive to the tournament, as you mentioned. So. I think it's still going to float around. Orianna just seems so much more like, I guess, safe and overall. I don't know.
I don't know if I would call Syndra overrated. in some of these games, we've been seeing her do just some crazy stuff.
Mm.
I can't remember which game exactly it was, but I remember one fight where Syndra was getting caught out and killed, and he just pressed Q R on a misfortune, and she died from full.
Yeah,
And they went to the
reaction
player's
gif,
player
too,
cam, and he was like almost laughing in disbelief. He's like, okay. And I think everyone who's played a carry against Syndra has had that similar fate. And the items on her, Storm Surge works so well. You're pretty much guaranteed to proc it with her combo because it hits so hard. So I think she's strong, and I'm kind of happy about that because I think Syndra and Ori, as long as it's not only those two champs, I'm happy when they're staples in pro play. They're just so fun to watch. They're these team fight champs they're really skill reliant. You can either completely win a team fight or just completely whiff everything and be useless. So I'm excited to see those champs more so than Tristana Corki.
Yeah. I mean, I think Syndra's strong. I think we saw it look really strong in a number of games. Like even in the losses, I thought Kaney was really smurfing on Syndra. I mean, we have like Knight, we have Showmaker, we have like all kinds of guys who are pretty well known for being really, really good Syndras as well. And I definitely don't think the meta is going to turn into only Syndra Ori. Because I think a lot of the melee champions are also really strong. Like Yone for sure is super strong. Maple was looking at Kali he was making Kali look really busted, I thought. So I think we're going to get variety and hopefully, even more variety than we got in play-ins. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with the meta so far.
Yeah, I think it's in a good place. And Jhin is one of the highest win rate AD carries right now too. So we've got variety in every lane. Do you want to move on to our Swiss stage matchups? Because we have 8 of them. We're going to do best of ones in the first day, and we're just going to run through every single one. We just did the draw. And, Mad Lions, congratulations for being matched up, first matchup versus BLG to start it off. Pretty difficult opponents. Maybe we will see the Nidalee flex pick for them be a tool that they have to bring out. I think Merwin, I forget who he gave the interview with, but he was talking about how they still have a lot of picks that they haven't shown yet, and it's because they haven't had to show things yet. But if you're going to go against, one of the tournament favorites straight out the gate, then I feel like we'll get to see something really cool from this team because Mad was actually such a fun EU team to watch, in large part because Merwin will play anything in the top lane, but also because their bottom lane has been sick. I mean, Alvaro, if we did like a vote, might be like MVP of playing so far, with some crazy plays that he did. So I'm actually super excited just to see them on stage and see mainly draft and then what they can pull off.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Mad's bot lane really showed up. I mean, I thought it was mostly just about jungle and bot for them. Thought Supa was playing really, really well, and clearly they were doing a lot of lane swaps. And especially in their first series, it was just like all dumping gold into him on the Jinx and trying to get him ahead. Alvaro was playing really, really well. Elyoya had strong games. But I will say, I was very excited for Mirwin. I thought he played awful in play-ins. And Frescowy was looking rough, too. Frescowy's Renekton game, I saw he was struggling, man. He's dumping his full combo into Braum with his E up and stuff. And, he was so useless. It was crazy. So, I am pretty worried for them against Knight and Bin. I'd be pretty worried for almost anyone against Knight and Bin because, well, they're Knight and Bin. But I think this one's gonna be tough. I agree. It's if there is a series to really just, you know what, you have the craziest pick saved up here, throw it out there because this is such a strong team, such a bulletproof team. BLG, everyone I think is going to have as one of the favorites for Worlds. They've been looking ridiculously good. And I think, yeah, it's one of the worst possible draws you could get, right? So it's very, very tough for Mad.
Yeah, I would probably bet on BLG if I was going to be doing some predictions here. I think,
Bold.
yeah, I mean, it's it's a rough first match without a doubt. But things can happen. Maybe they upset them. Who knows?
I would also say this is one of those games where you don't have to upset them to win in the eyes of the fans. You just have to like do some stuff. You know what I mean? Like you just have to be a little bit competitive. You're a little bit competitive and you pull out a cool pick and you get some kills. Like you just have to be in there. You know what I mean? And if you can do that, then people are going to be really happy, really excited about it, because it's a no expectation game, right? Like I don't think anyone, even the most hardcore fans of Mad, are going to be going in like thinking they should win. So it's an opportunity to kind of like pull something special to try to style a little bit, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully we get a sick draft and some sick gameplay. And when it's a landslide like expectations like that, if you do get an upset, then it's always some of the biggest moments of the tournament. But following this, we have a rematch, T1 versus TES, which I don't think is going to be a landslide either way. I would probably still favor T1 again. They played at the Esports World Cup. But
even though T1's look a lot worse in summer now.
I think so, because I really think that T1 is going to benefit from the Worlds patch and from the extra time. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be a banger, though. Definitely going to be a banger.
I think it's one of the best draws. Go ahead.
Yeah, T1's just been struggling so much. I know that as a Faker fan myself, watching T1 go through playoffs and then the gauntlet was so stressful. They just kept losing. And I'm thinking, if Faker's not at Worlds, that's just a loss for everybody. It's especially with the music video coming out afterwards. That would have been really awkward if he wasn't there.
The people who made that must have been sweating every time they're losing
absolutely.
a series.
They're
then it
just
goes
like
game 5, their final chance after they failed like at multiple BO5s in a row, and you're just like, we spent the whole year making this.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been terrifying. But I do hope to see them in better form, because it's really been weird watching them lately in their games, because they're just not playing well. It almost, I mean, they definitely seem tilted in some way. It's really hard to describe, but yeah, like you said, it could be a better meta for them. I know that, obviously Faker is much more known for playing mages and even stuff like Akali and whatnot, more so than AD carries. So hopefully they're back in form, and I'd love to see him do well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Faker either, because Faker's been super struggling, but like Owner's been super struggling also, Carrier as well. But it's just like I really think when Worlds comes around, and they jump on the new patch and they have some time, that I'm always really looking forward to T1 games. That being said, like Cream's probably pretty happy as well with this match too. So I think this matchup is coming off of game number 1, which is so lopsided. It's cool to have this on day 1, because this one should be so much closer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Cream I think could be pretty happy as well. Like he's a nasty Akali, nasty Salas, Ari, like. He can play a lot of those picks, which really haven't been in the meta. I don't know for sure if he's going to play those or if it is going to be more like Syndra Ori, but there's definitely the opportunity for it. And we have some like incredible melee mid type champion, like type players. If that does become the meta, if it does go into like a Kali Salas and everything like that, like Zeka as well, obviously, but Cream is really, really good at it. Tien was insane in the LPL in summer. Like he actually won MVP. I think he's playing so incredibly well. And even though people are always kind of like hating on Tien, I feel like a little bit going into Worlds, and calling him a choker and stuff, I feel like he played so well in the LPL that you kind of have to give benefit of the doubt that like he should be expected to be playing really well at Worlds.
He kind of has like the opposite aura where I give T1, like bonus points coming to Worlds.
You just assume they're gonna succeed, and you assume he's gonna fail.
I give Tien's got like the -1. That doesn't mean he can't overcome it, but it's like you're right. It's because of past expectations.
World's
So it's like
debuff.
Meteos was saying the figure's got the riz. It just reminds me of that meme where it's like the hot guy talking to the woman, and it's like, oh, so cute, and then the like ugly guy talking to the woman or whatever. It's like, hello, HR or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like the TN faker. Yeah, I mean, I think top will be pretty strong. So this is, I think, maybe the best draw of the first 8 of the matches for the first day. This one, I think, is going to be really, really exciting, and it's going to be answering a lot of the questions because I mean, it's hard to bet against T1 and think they're going to be trash because it's like every single time Faker has made it to Worlds, he's made it to at least semifinals, right? No matter when they look good, they look bad, they just always seem to show up at Worlds. But at the same time, it feels hard to ignore the form that they've been in coming into Worlds. So I think this will be like a big kind of like barometer of like how good are they actually going to be, right? Like if they look really scuffed in this first series, then I think people are going to be like, okay, it's actually like summer T1 and they could be, getting knocked out in Swiss. But if they come in and they play really, really well, then I think it's kind of like hype train all the way ahead. Everyone's just going to be expecting them to be super good again.
Yeah.
All right, next game we've got lined up here: GenG versus Weibo. Weibo had such a wild ride, and I know after finals, because playing against BLG is like a tough task for everybody. But then their rematch with LNG was like right after finals, and a lot of people were citing that as like, oh, they didn't have a lot of time to like refocus and re-prepare and kind of reset expectations. But I'm pretty hyped for Weibo as well. I think specifically Light, even though Crisp got gapped by On in the first 2 games and they got 2v2 killed in game 1 and in game 2, I thought both of those were Crisp's fault. And Light has actually been so good for them. So I guess I also put Xiaohu in like a Faker bucket where I'm like, even if he's had a rough summer,
Gets world points.
He get like, everybody, exactly. Everybody's got either a buff or a debuff when like this modifier when you're coming to Worlds. And I feel like Xiaohu's got like a positive one for me. So like, summer's been rough for him, but Light has been a really consistent, amazing carry for them. And I'm always a huge Tarzan fan, even though he choked at Worlds. So maybe he's got the debuff from last time, causing LNG to actually get rid of him and put him on. And then he got signed on this team. But now he's been doing really well in summer. So I guess a couple of the junglers representing LPL might have the debuff, but they've got some positive ones on the other side too. It's just there's so much with the patch change and the extra time here coming to Worlds that day one, I love the fact that we're getting, best of ones with everybody playing through, and we're going to get a bunch of these best of one, initial reactions of everybody overreacting off of these 2 and being a bit like, I told you so. He's a joker at Worlds all the time. Or, success.
Yeah. I think for this match, I would probably favor GenG because with the, assuming the meta changes are for real, less lane swaps, less AD carries mid, it looks like GenG has already kind of been leaning that way, especially Peanut. I think he's someone who is going to be absolutely happy to be on Sejuani, Maokai, maybe Skarner as well, the more tank style champions rather than mages who are full clearing all the time. So I have to imagine that GenG is going to, look great as they always do. And
but Peanut's on Hanwha now, though.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's awkward.
Well, it's funny because like Hanwha got like the pack of ex GenG players. So
sorry, other GenG is what I'm thinking of.
What you meant was GenG Orange.
What I meant was GenG Orange. Sorry, that's Hanwha. That'll work for later. How Canyon, maybe actually not the case for Canyon though, because he's absolutely someone who'd rather be on a carry than one of the supportive champs, even though he does play him, but
In summer
probably not
playoffs, he
his
played like a
ideal.
lot of tanks and stuff though too, right? Like he played like a lot of like Maokai and Skarner and stuff like that. So I mean, he I feel like he can probably play everything, but yeah, Canyon's obviously famous for power farmers and being like a monster on those style of champions. We did see some of it, some of the power farmers in play-ins, but not a lot. But it'll be interesting. I mean, it is funny because like when you said, "Oh yeah, you favor GenG," I was kind of like, "Yeah, of course." Like everyone's gonna favor GenG, but also it's weird to think that they both got second in summer split in their regions, right? But I just can't really think of GenG as a second seed for some reason. Like I don't know. It's almost the same way I feel about TL. And maybe it's kind of like
Mm.
unfair, but I'm like, yeah, you lost in the finals, but you're still the number one seed. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
I don't know if that's
I
just
think
me,
that's
but
fair. I think, the seeding, like you were saying, it actually just comes down to your placement in finals. And
yeah,
first versus second seed, it's literally did you win the finals or not. And when it goes to a game 5 or whatnot, when it's really close, I don't think that means you're a worse team, even if you didn't win it.
yeah,
Because I think probably most of the region shares your sentiment about TL and FlyQuest. Because even if you just look at their games throughout the whole year and split, TL has a much better win rate overall, and they've done well internationally already. So
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I think
finals tells you the best team on that day, right? But like looking at the entirety of the year, kind of is at least for me more indicative of like your full year performance.
oh
And
yeah,
they
100%. You can see their different play styles, how they react to meta changes, their flexibility, whatnot. I think that matters way more than just how did you do in one series.
and GenG were on the golden road this year. You know, they had their sights set high, so that's why everybody was, you know, ready to continue the story. It was
Hmm.
only Ox. It was, you see the predictions were all GenG
Yeah,
across the line. They have like 30 predictions, you know, and I would have been up there too, you know, on board, but you know, it actually was so much closer. So I think, yeah, everyone's still gonna, of course, have so much faith in GenG, and I think this one is going to be very lopsided as far as predictions, but not as lopsided as game number one, like in play will be, because I actually, yeah, I am kind of hyped for Weibo, but I think, yeah, Chovy will easily be able to change to whatever meta it is. I mean, he was all over the AD carry meta. He was getting other people to be like, should I be playing Draven mid also? You know, should I be playing? You know, he was kind of like leading the charge, and he kept giving interviews too, where he was like, yeah, you know, you shouldn't have these expectations of what mid lane can be, and so he seems to just thrive in meta changes and in, you know, being a very versatile player. And I like he has grown to be like just such a juggernaut. It is really hard to bet against them.
yeah. I mean, Chovy's playing insanely well. I think Pays has been an absolute monster. Like Canyon's super good. I mean, the whole team is absolutely rock solid. So, I think GenG's absolutely one of the favorites for Worlds. Weibo, obviously, they got to finals, but they're not the number 2 seed because then they had to qualify
Yeah.
in through the play-in. Got well, I don't even know what it was called. I can't remember. But basically,
Regional
the gauntlet
qualifier.
regional
Yeah.
qualifier. Um, it's interesting though because it's like they made it all the way to finals, then they got 3-0 in finals, then got 3-0 in the next series, then lost the next ones. They had lost 7 straight
Yeah.
games on the final stage, and you're like, oh god. And
They beat
they're kind of
JDG.
yeah, they did. They did. But it was looking dire for a while there. Like, you know, watching all the games, losing 7 straight on. You're like, are they actually just gonna go like 0-9 and get knocked out of Worlds? Especially because like Xiaohu was playing really bad in summer, especially early on. It was one of those things where I know a lot of people were thinking like, oh, is he actually just like not good anymore? Is this like the end? Is he gonna retire? You know, like people
Mhm.
were kind of getting to this level of like, oh, he's just like actually not good. But he really did pull it back, and I think, you know, Weibo had been playing a lot better towards the end, so it is going to be exciting. I super heavily favor GenG, but like I think this is still going to be an exciting
Yeah,
match.
I think the biggest difference is like coordination. Like GenG macro is like S plus tier, and I feel like Weibo's best bet is gonna be to just kind of uh, embrace the instincts and the just full send instead of trying to like react to GenG moves, because so many of these games when you see like GenG just dictating the pace, it's just like they have side lane push. They're getting so much money on Chovy, and they're like making you react to all of their macro moves first. It seems like if you get to that point, then it's just too hard to come back. So I hope they just go full send and go super
I also
hard.
really wonder how, like, what kind of style Weibo are going to play, because I feel like part of what kind of like saved Weibo in some ways is just Xiaohu being able to play ADs and split push, right?
Mhm.
Like, and like he obviously was known as like the Lucian monster and everything, but like Tristana and Corki and all these things like really did kind of fit his style. And like he played Zeri, he played a fair bit of Lucian as well, and like you can't do that anymore. And I felt like that kind of like papered over some teams' problems and their problems as well, where it was just like, okay, you just take this guy who knows how to play the map really well, you put him on an AD carry, and you kind of just like send him to hoover up gold in the side lanes. And it seems a lot harder now because like a lot of the meta picks, I think it's like a lot more dangerous to split push. But maybe we are going to get more of like the melee champions that can kind of do that effectively.
Yeah, I say
And
I would
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
the jungle matchup is the one thing for Weibo where I was like coming in like just the form right now. I think Tarzan might be able to like get them a good early game and get them a surprise victory. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't fully know if the AD carry meta is dead because,
That's fair, yeah.
in play-ins it wasn't super huge, but I can't remember which year it was, but there was a Worlds where Yumi had just been nerfed a lot and, everyone was hating Yumi. We come into Worlds play-ins, there's really no Yumi at all. Everyone's saying this is like the best meta ever. It's so fun. Then very first game of the real Worlds, whatever you want to call it, T1 just first picks Yumi, locks it in, and everyone just was like, oh god, it's gonna be one of those. So sometimes it does take a little bit for the meta to truly settle. So hopefully it's not what we've seen the whole time, but it could be. We never know.
If it's Corki Tristana, oh my god, just kill me now, dude. If it just actually turns out that it's just still just Corki Tristana every game, I don't believe it. I refuse to believe that we live in that world.
I mean, I hope not. I hope not for variety's sake. We see some other stuff, but we'll see. There's been a little bit of Tristana. There was a Corky top in play-ins.
Yeah, there was. Thankfully, the Smolder lost. But yeah, I guess Tristana is like the AD carry that's hardest to stamp out, or at least has been so far. Shall we move to
Fnatic
another
DK.
one, which I think is a banger? Fnatic versus DK. I mean, how are you guys feeling about this one? Are you gonna risk some EU favoritism here? Because I'm not.
I'm not. I'm 100% Damwon on this one. Yeah, I don't really see Fnatic beating them. It just seems like a tough task, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because it's like Fnatic are so up and down, even in the LEC, right? Like they hit these high highs, and then they like completely have these like series where they're completely falling apart. So it's just so hard to know like exactly what they're gonna get. Like they beat G2 and you're like, maybe they're finally gonna do it, and then they have these series where it's just like monster throw after monster throw after monster throw. You get 3-0'd by G2, like after having these like bigger and bigger and bigger leads. I feel like Noah has like really struggled to kind of find consistency. Honestly, like this maybe sounds BM or whatever, but like these people have bad associations, but like he really feels like EU tactical to me, where it's just like a player that has a lot of talent, but there's always that feeling in the back of your mind that it's like no matter what the lead is, he might just go and die and like they're gonna lose the game, and like I get that feeling so much watching him. And I know that he seems to like really kind of struggle with that. And I know Fnatic as well, just from talking to a lot of the EU casters and people around the team, that it's like they are very like a very emotional team, and they play like really really well. If they're like really feeling it, everything's going really well. And if they don't, if things start going bad, they start playing really really poorly, and it's like kind of like a spiral. June is a player that plays really like that. I've kind of the same things about like Humanoid and Noah and really like
Mhm.
almost the whole team. Razark, I will say, like was such a standout. I feel like he was the best jungler in EU for sure this year. I felt like Yike really kind of fell off compared to his previous level, and Razark really impressed. So I do feel like if Fnatic can kind of play at their peak level, then they can really challenge against a lot of people. I know that they are kind of known as one of those teams that can be like scrim god team and like have really really high ceiling, but it's just so hard to know what you're gonna get. And I feel like I've just seen them like throw too many games in LEC and have too many kind of scuffed moments to bet on them against one of the LPL or LCK teams until I've kind of like seen them do it here at Worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And touching on that point, I remember seeing some stats about, vision score of teams, and Fnatic had some shockingly low amount of like control words bought compared to almost all the other teams. And I feel like that's not how you beat the, Eastern teams. I think if you try to play with no vision against them, you're just going to have a horrible time. So I'm definitely worried for them in that regard.
And then this whole time where you're talking about Noah, and even though like they have been focused on that issue, and like they've hired the sports psychologist, and he talks about like deleting social media for a while, and all that. Then you're putting him against Aiming, who was like mega carry consistent. Like you're like, oh man, can we rely? Is Noah going to make a mistake? Well, Aiming was like so critical for DK. So like bot lane matchup might very well just be featured matchup for this this series. For me, it's either that or mid lane. Because mid lane is also super hype with Showmaker and Humanoid. With Humanoid talking so much trash before finals and
LEC
stuff.
finals,
Yeah, before LEC finals, I was like, oh my god, this is one that could also just blow up. And I think Humanoid was one of the like culprits as well, Meteos, with the stat that you're talking about, where people are talking about him specifically not buying a lot of control wards. And I forget who it was. I think maybe it was one of his teammates or something. Was talking about how he sees the game really focused on like these gold breakpoints, and so is just like really doesn't want to waste any gold, on controllers and stuff. And so, I mean, you see it a lot with kind of risky plays from Fnatic, but these two teams matching up, that like there's guaranteed to be action, and like I feel like it's just guaranteed to be at least an exciting matchup. And whether it's, I can't really decide whether mid lane or bottom lane is going to be my featured matchup, but maybe both.
It's also really cool that Showmaker has still never missed Worlds. I think it's 6 in a row that he's made now since he was a rookie, and it's all with the same team, right? He's been with Damwon his whole career. So I thought that was pretty impressive, just like as the stat, right? Like his rosters have changed a fair bit around him. But like, still being able to make it to every single Worlds is pretty damn impressive.
Doesn't have Canyon by his side now.
Sad.
But it's okay. Building up Lucid. Excited for Lucid's experience here at Worlds too. So, like you said, Fnatic early game, I think a lot of it was jungle based, and the early game was huge. So I think that'll be a really fun test for him as well.
Yeah, totally.
So actually, a lot of really good matchups here.
I mean, if Razor could pop off, and if Fnatic can get rolling and like get the good vibes going and stuff, it'll be so interesting.
Get the good vibes going. The early game, I'm like, you know what? The early game, I'm actually really confident. I feel like that's like this game is going to be a banger, whether Fnatic get an early lead or not. This one's going to be action pass. Can they keep it?
It was funny. I was some people were telling me a story about like Humanoid, about it's just like basically like if he wakes up and he's like in a good mood, that they're like gonna stomp scrims that day. And like his team is just saying like, oh, but if he like wakes up and he's like not in a good mood, it's just absolutely doomed. And they're like, he's gonna play horrible and they're screwed. So it's like I guess a little bit of a coin flip on like his how he's feeling just like day by day and how he's gonna play. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I do think though, as far as that goes, the LEC teams definitely have an advantage playing your home studio. Like you're going to be comfortable. So maybe if there is an upset to happen, it is going to be kind of like a day one upset. It's best of one. You have like maybe a better meta read than they do because the LCK and LPL teams have just been scrimming against each other. So I think there's always an opportunity on day one for something crazy to happen.
Yeah, and home field advantage is actually even funnier here with Showmaker's history with Europe West solo queue too.
Maybe that's why they didn't come.
Featured matchup mid lane is going to be who woke up and had a better day today.
Featured matchup Showmaker versus US solo queue.
Yeah,
who I wouldn't vote on Showmaker for that one. He's had a rough run in that matchup.
Yeah. The next one is a TL versus LNG, which is going to be really exciting. I think this one it's super, super hype. And if you are West Coast in LA, or this is going to be starting at 9 a.m. PST, I do believe. So it should be noon East Coast. Is going to be the 5th game of the day. So actually at a pretty watchable hour if you are in NA, which is nice. This one is another one of the most exciting matchups, I think. Because it is going to be, we know Scout's going to be back with the team. That got announced, so they don't have to have any crazy sub situation with Yagao or anything like that. And we know that TL has obviously been one of the teams that is looked at as a top Western team. They really are trying to prove that they like belong up there with G2 and that they should be looked at as like the best Western team and all this sort of stuff. Well, you have to beat an LCK or LPL team or start knocking down some of those teams if you really want people to kind of put that respect on your name. That is kind of like the barrier to entry to be looked at in that echelon. And I know that a lot of people were putting them in tier lists and like putting them pretty low. And even I saw tier lists with them below Fnatic and all this stuff. So I feel like some of the TL guys kind of have a bit of a chip on their shoulder to come in here and show what they can do. And I have heard that they are super, super stomping scrims. So whether or not that means anything, I've heard they're kind of doing better than ever in scrims against the top European teams and stuff. So people were telling me that they've been pretty frightening, and I'm excited to see how they do. I have a lot of my hopes pinned on TL.
Do not tell me that scrim stuff right after you told me 100 Thieves were stomping scrim. Don't tell me the exact same setup here.
Would you rather I tell you that they're getting absolutely just stomped every game? FF5 minutes.
Tell me anything and everything.
Tell me they're learning a lot. They're having productive scrims.
Yeah.
As long as it's different from 100 Thieves story, then I'm down with it. And having TL below Fnatic is kind of crazy. Whatever list that was on with.
I've seen some cooked tier lists on Twitter, man. But yes.
I mean, just because of their direct matchup, but yeah, this actual matchup, I'm super excited for it because, like you're saying, we have to win, some of these hard games. I think this is a winnable matchup for Team Liquid. The one thing I was thinking about this during the draw, kind of already, I know APA's champion pool is always a discussion point, but for me, Yone has been so big across so many regions, and specifically for LNG. Now that Scout is confirmed, like that was a huge tool for them. And APA still has not played a single game of Yone in his career, and I am just his champion pool is always like a discussion point. How that's going to affect overall draft and stuff. I'm still pretty confident in Team Liquid. But I was starting to think about those matchups. Maybe with LNG having issues with organizing everything, there'll be some issues as far as like practice time and all that. But I actually think these two teams match up pretty well. And I think especially if Team Liquid can get a good early game, which they were quite good at in LCS. They're very good at like manufacturing leads for APA, get him in the side lane really early on. get gold into his hands. And tank meta is very, very good for Umpty. Adding Skarner to the Sejuani Maokai list here, I feel like is quite nice. So honestly, I feel like TL should have a seamless transition into Worlds play from what they were doing in LCS. And I know their work ethic is extremely strong, and they were immediately hitting the ground running, trying to practice as much as possible, trying to get as many in-houses, scrim as much as possible. I think the TL headquarters in like Amsterdam or something. So they have they have facilities in Europe as well. And I'm just kind of like trying to focus on our other two teams pretty heavily now, and I'm pretty hyped for the other two possibilities.
Yeah, I mean the Yone thing is definitely a big question mark, but it's like it's not just Yone. He's literally played one melee champion in his pro career at tier one game of any melee champion. Yeah, it was Nasus this playoffs. That's the only time he's ever played a melee champion.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy stat, but I guess he hasn't been playing that long. You know, it's just over a year now.
Summer this year, and summer was like only Tristana Corki and stuff, right? But it is a crazy stat.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'll have to see what he's playing in solo queue. I have to imagine someone on his level can play most things. It's just, sometimes as a team, you have to play a little bit differently depending on what kind of champ you have, how much resources they have. If a champion's unsafe going to the side lane, then, you kind of have to play differently around it. They need a little bit more vision, some more babysitting. But TL's a good team, and I don't know. Maybe I go for the Hopium and pick TL for this one, because I haven't seen as much LPL as the other regions. So I'm not as, up to date on how good everyone is. So I'll just probably blindly vote TL on this one.
Well, LNG play a lot like around mid and bottom lane. But I think that like I was saying, like that matchup for TL, I think they're pretty comfortable with that. Like they'll just leave Impact up top side, no problem, and have Umpty be able to cover mid and bottom. And Umpty's actually been so good with the tank junglers that even though there's, like we said earlier, the meta is going to be pretty wide open. I think they actually set up pretty well here, and I am hoping that they'll be able to get an early lead, because that makes it so much easier to play against this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think that LNG can be somewhat mistake prone. Like, I don't think that they're this like perfect, super clean team. I felt like largely they got to Worlds because Scout was playing so incredible. So I think that, the biggest question for me is definitely mid lane. It's like, what is APA going to play, and can he actually match up against Scout? I mean, if, maybe they just have to like ban Yone, like that wouldn't be a bad ban regardless, like if we were playing against, because it's so strong in the meta. But I am really interested to see, like, okay, yeah, Trist, Corki are gone, but side laning for TL with APA has been such a big part of their identity, of him kind of like collecting gold. So even if those are gone, can he bring Ziggs into mid? Ziggs obviously was still getting played in bot and has still been relatively popular. He used to side lane on Ziggs. He used to side lane on Azael. Like, so there are mages that you can kind of play through sides on and still have success with. So I'm going to be interested to see if they can kind of maintain that identity, because I think that that's just been such a big part of how TL has played, is a pretty heavy focus on APA playing in side lanes. So if you can only play like Syndra and Ori and stuff, it's pretty dangerous to side lane on those champions. And I think that would be such a big shift for how they have to play, which would be, I think, pretty concerning for me. Honestly, I think this could totally go either way. And kind of like the big question for me is just, this is going to dictate a lot of how I think, TL may do at Worlds. Obviously, you could just have a bad one game and then bounce back, but it's like, this is the kind of team that you need to beat if you want to prove that you're on that level, right? Like, if people are going to put you as a top 8 team, well, the lower seeds for LCK and LPL are the teams that you have to beat out. Like, those teams in G2, those are the teams that you have to be able to beat out if you want to be a quarterfinals team. Because, the top teams right now, no one has really been able to prove that they can actually like reach that high to take them down. So I think this is a really, really exciting matchup and a big first test.
We will be praying. Get your namens out.
Yep, definitely going to be praying again. This is going to be on November. It's October 3rd, and it is going to be 9 a.m. PST or noon EST. So that one definitely don't miss it. We're going to go to a break though, and we'll be right back.
Hello?
Bro, what are you parking?
Seriously? What is that?
Remote smart parking assist. You could have parked anywhere.
They could have parked there. They could have parked there. They could have parked there.
Okay, welcome back to the dive driven by Kia. It is time to talk about the sixth matchup here of the first day of Swiss. It is going to be HLE versus PSG, and this one is definitely a little bit of a David versus Goliath type situation. I think that's true for basically like all of the play-ins matchups, but of course, I think it's going to be a really tough first test for PSG.
Yeah, I mean, we saw PSG stumble a little bit early, and even though they absolutely clapped 100 Thieves, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at the mistakes that 100 Thieves made. And this is such an uphill battle with HLE, even though people still look at GenG as kind of like you're saying as being pinnacle. I feel like HLE is, especially after winning, is on the same tier. And as we kind of alluded to earlier, they have like the triple pack of ex-GenG players themselves. And Zeka is going to be one of the players that loves patch and meta here for Worlds the most. And he is hulking out, and everyone's just fawning over Viper's play right now. And Peanut was absolutely popping off, and he is a consummate veteran. It's just like, I feel like this is just such a stacked opponent for PSG to have to play, that it is just like going to be light years different in difficulty.
I mean,
especially
if
with
it's
like
melee mids meta, like this is the guy, right? Like that's how he won Worlds.
Yeah, and with Viper playing well right now too. When I remember like the Griffin days, I was always like, oh my god, like not only is he super sick mechanically, but he could play anything at that time. And during the Griffin days was the times when people had to play like Vladimir, and all the mages were in bottom lane and stuff, and he was playing Yasuo bottom lane, exactly. And so I feel like this team will handle Worlds patch really, really well. And Peanut is just like one of the smartest junglers. Meteos was talking about how much he loves the tanks and loves the control there too. So yeah, this is definitely going to be very difficult for PSG. I guess if we're trying to hype them up, it was like Maple's Akali was very impressive, but then you're literally playing it against the world champion Akali player that like smashed on the Akali Silas meta, and you're just like, well, shoot, it is, good luck PSG.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be awesome to see Zeka on like Akali Yone type champs, because he's just so good at them. They're really fun to watch, and yeah, I think not many people are probably going to be putting their money on PSG for this one. Like, I mean, you guys pretty much mentioned it all. HLE, first place, LCK. Some people even call them GenG. Could be anyone. Yeah, so they're probably pretty favored for this one.
Yeah, where do you stand on all the Doran slander? Because I feel like I hear so much Doran trash talk and people memeing on him, and I don't know. I feel like it's super over exaggerated how bad people talk about him being, and like I felt like through a lot of playoffs he was playing pretty solid, and this guy's a pretty flexible player. Like, yeah. He's not been, but I feel like the Doran slander is getting like out of control. Even on pros, Whipple was just like memeing on Doran and stuff when Stanford said, "Oh yeah, it'd be really cool to play against good players like Doran." He's like, "Doran, you gotta aim higher." Like, that guy's butt, right? Like, and people are just, I just see so much Doran slander, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I just don't really get it. Like, yeah, he's not the absolute best. Like, he's not the elite tier, but
Yeah.
he's better than most of the top laners in the tournament.
Yeah, I think to like Whippo's point there was like, oh, look at Bin or
Yeah.
Zayas, or Keen or something like that, and you're like, okay, fair enough. And I think it's like a similar thing with if you're looking at this team, then you're not going to pick on any of the other members, so then people end up picking on Doran, right? It's kind of just like, all right, well,
Leave
you're
Torin
like,
alone.
yeah, you're like the one who's most bullyable on that team of like such.
You're looking around,
a,
you're like, oh, that guy's pretty jacked. Oh,
Yeah.
that guy's pretty big.
yeah, because we mentioned like Peanut's like a Viper, but also like Delight, especially if Delight gets like Recon and like engage supports are like the meta right now is gonna like he's also gonna be amazing. So then you're thinking about Doran and you're like, well, what comes to mind? The most recent thing was that Aatrox flash in mid lane that was like MSI or something, and or Worlds. So you're just like, all right, there's just like some blooper moments, and that's all it takes when you already have like the previous reputation of being the one on like really good teams that gets targeted.
Yeah. I don't have a super strong opinion either way about Doran. I don't think he's bad. To me, he kind of feels more like Impact style of player who aims to play solid, maybe not going to single-handedly carry a lot of games, but they'll play for the team, do what needs to be done. And yeah, I don't know. When I watch their games, I never find myself sitting there thinking like, oh man, Doran's so bad. So probably a little overblown for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It'll be definitely interesting to see how HLE does, and again, like if they can kind of disprove people, because it's going to be one of those things where I think coming in, everyone's talking about BLG, everyone's talking about GenG. HLE though definitely prove that they should be on that kind of tier. So it'll be exciting if it does end up being a melee meta, especially for mid lane. I think this team could really do some damage and be a threat to actually win the whole thing. We talked a lot about PSG, obviously, earlier on with the play-in stuff, but yeah, I think this one is going to be heavily favored to HLE. But then again, to be fair to PSG, they actually almost beat BLG in a best of 5 at MSI. So there is that. They actually went 5 games against BLG at MSI. So you never know if they can really like get their kind of champs and get their kind of picks. Then who knows?
Channel the Flash Wolves. I think even you mentioned it today on broadcast. But
Carson and Mabel, baby.
The old Korean killer moniker. If they can just channel that. All right, next one, banger. FlyQuest got Gam. When I saw that draw, I was like, all right, let's go. I think Inspired will easily be able to attack. Again, I'm just like so focused on the Shyvana jungle path because it is so common for these junglers that are weak early and they're level 6 junglers, and you start every single time. Blue side, he starts Wolves. Raptors, Krugs, so you get them respawning quicker. Then you reverse clear up to the other side so that then after your recall, you can get your level 5 and then be at grubs on spawn. So you can yoink at least one grub with a smite charge. And then if they don't come to grubs, you can get level 6 off the rest of the grubs. Just stay there and take those. Or if they do, then he rotates down to dragon. But Levi did such a good job of like staying ahead of the curve and being that like solo queue fed Shyvana that's always like an item or half an item ahead of me. But I feel like Inspired, like FlyQuest will be looking at the tape. I feel like he is really well set up to try and counter that. And especially if you're trying to counter that, mid lane is like the biggest tool, not even just like jungle versus jungle matchup. But mid lane matchup determines a lot of being able to invade or upset that route. And so with how well Quad has been playing, I'm actually quite confident in FlyQuest. This might come back and bite me, but I am very confident in FlyQuest here. I think we're gonna get the dub here and get us back to even keel for NA fans.
Yep. I I'm definitely curious to see Gam up against a tougher opponent because with the route you were talking about with Shyvana, it's basically committing to doing nothing, which I think it's actually a really good thing to do in solo queue or maybe even in play-in tournament where your opponents aren't going to be super high level, because in order to punish that, you can do a number of things. If you can invade Shyvana, you can just make a lane really volatile. And if I'm FlyQuest and I'm playing against the jungle Shyvana, I'm just telling everyone on my team, like, play as aggressive as possible in lane, almost regardless of matchup. Just try to push. If they contest your push, the lane becomes volatile and you can gank it. Shyvana's not going to counter. And if they don't contest it, then you have prio and you can just invade with your laners and push Shyvana out. So I think that FlyQuest absolutely will know how to do that. And so I'm curious if Gam's even going to pick Shyvana, or if they do, how it's going to go, because just having one of those complete inaction early game plans, I feel like is a little flimsy in my mind. I think that having some flexibility, be able to react to what's going on in the game, like if a lane gets super spicy, is like really important. So yeah, I think FlyQuest should be able to punish that.
I will say, I think if it's up, he'll probably play it. It was his most played champion in summer. Like he played it a lot. So I guess that's maybe including Worlds as well. But like he has played a lot of this champion. And
he's good at, and he's been really good at keeping his economy up and like being half an item or an item ahead and like hitting those breakpoints.
I feel like even more than that, because like I can play Shyvana and do nothing but farm camps and sometimes get items ahead. But like I felt like he did that while taking away enemy camps and pressuring towers, and like I really liked how he played it with a lead. How he was like being really, really active with the ult. He wasn't just kind of like AFK farming. It's like every time his ult was active, he would just go to a tower and he'd just like show up and they'd just 2v1 a lane and he'd just throw some E's at someone and push them off the tower and they'd just like get gold by doing that. I thought it was actually like really impressive how he was kind of pushing the game forward. And he's obviously really comfortable at that kind of power farming style. When Shyvana wasn't available, he played Wukong, right? And it's kind of like not the exact same, but it is a similar idea where he is kind of like power farming, playing around ulti, and that's kind of their style. I think Kiaya is like legit really good. I think he's like actually a really strong player. So I do think that they're no joke. And you know they did go undefeated in play-ins, you know, regardless of whatever you want to say about the quality of teams. And you know we just kind of have to see how FlyQuest is going to show up. I definitely think if FlyQuest plays like they did in playoffs, they're a really strong team and they should be pretty heavily favored in this matchup. But I also think like the FlyQuest that we saw in regular season, like lost a lot of games to teams that maybe they shouldn't have lost. So that's kind of like my question mark about them is I feel like Whippo really leveled up in playoffs and at finals weekend. And I'm kind of wondering like if he's going to be able to maintain that form, then I think FlyQuest could definitely do some damage at tournament. But you know, I feel like less confident about them than I do about TL. And, you know, especially because like MSI still has that kind of bad taste in my mouth, right? Where they got knocked out in play-ins and they were the first NA team ever to get knocked out in play-ins at MSI. And now I have them with Thunder Thieves as well, obviously. But I definitely think either way, they have to be heavily favored here. But I feel less confident, I guess, until I kind of like see.
You're too scared. You've been burned too many times.
Yeah, I'm scared.
I'm putting myself out there. You know, I'm ready to get back out there. Azael, I'm on the market. Honestly, I think again, I just think Quad has been playing so well, and even though Emo's way better this time than when we saw at MSI, you know, and they had some rough times. I still think that mid lane matchup is really going to allow Inspired to take control. But I 100% agree with you. I think Blipple is very volatile. Both, well, maybe even a little bit less volatile in lane phase and more volatile like as the game goes on. With some of the decisions, it seems like he feels like a lot of pressure to do something. Maybe when like the game state doesn't actually necessitate it or something like that. But yeah, there definitely have been some like decisions that were pretty questionable. But I'm confident in mid jungle for sure. Bottom lane as well. So yeah, I guess as long as Ki doesn't pop off, then I'll remain confident.
All right.
Yep. And our final match of the first Swiss round will be G2 versus Pain Gaming. And I think that one is, also going to be pretty one-sided. Pain honestly overperformed expectations in the play-in tournament. They definitely showed strength as a team. They did better than 100 Thieves did. And they had some really standout, plays and moments. I think that Titan, or I guess Teton, is how
Yeah, I
how
think
it
it's like
pronounces it?
almost like a C sound, like a cheeton. I think it is.
Teton.
Yeah.
Okay. I will try. But like their Lucian Nami was really good. Super aggressive and just, always like trading hard in lane, getting lots of nice chunks with the ult on the mid prio contest. And so I think Pain might not fully roll over, but I am very worried about mid lane. Even in the series today, we saw Pain's mid laner really
Jinkato.
struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really struggled against Kaney. I'm bad at pronouncing all these names.
No, that's exactly how you say it. That one is literally like Kane's E, the ability that goes through the walls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kaney. Yeah, I mean, he was really struggling. I saw some stat tweeted out that it was like the biggest mid CS difference since like season 7 at 8
Oh, wow.
minutes. He was down like 35 CS at 8 minutes. So I'm a little worried for mid lane. You're going up against Caps, one of the best mid laners in the world. So it will absolutely be an uphill battle for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's going to predict G2. Let's be honest. I think that this is not the test for G2. This is one of the best draws they could have gotten. Not that I think they'd really be worried about anyone coming from play-ins, to be honest. Even against PSG or whatever, who I think is definitely a lot tougher. They would obviously be pretty massively favored. I think the question for people around G2 is it's like, what is your level going to be against the big dogs, right? Because this team obviously has in the past been able to perform against the really good LPL and LCK teams, and they lost to Energy last Worlds, and there's kind of been this like NAU rivalry. People want to see them versus like TL and them versus the LCK teams and LPL teams, and see are you performing on that level where you can take them down? Because even though G2 won at the end of the day, they had a way more shaky summer split than we're used to seeing. Because it's kind of like, I mean, even for me, every time I watch LEC, and even if G2 loses, I'm like, oh, well, who cares? G2 are just going to win at the end. Like, it doesn't actually matter, right? Like, they're always going to win. They've been the best team there for so long. Fnatic hasn't won since Caps left Fnatic, right? Like, yeah, there's been a couple championships here and there with Matt or whoever winning. But, like, it's all G2 all the time. But this time, it really was kind of looking, I don't know. I mean, between, I guess it was their winter. I guess it's called winter, and then summer championship or whatever. I forget the series are, but like they had their summer finals, then their season championship finals, or whatever, back to back after that. But it's like they lost a best of 5 to MDK. They lost a best of 5 to Fnatic. They almost got swept by BDS and then had to reverse sweep. Like, and then even the series that they like 3-0'd Fnatic, they were getting absolutely dumpstered in the early game, every single game, to like bigger and bigger degrees. Then yeah, they came back and they won. So it's like they are showing some kind of like signs, some question marks. But then at the same time, they play the map really, really well. Caps is still playing incredible. I thought BB, especially during the regular season, was like really consistent and playing well. Yike, I felt like has had a really down year. Like I was really impressed by him, coming up, and I thought he was going to be one of these guys that's just kind of like up and to the right and like getting better and better and better. But Yike, I felt like really struggled this year compared to kind of like my expectation. And Mickey, as good as like his good games are, he had so many like monster inting games that it was looking like bad Hillsong, like where it was like he had some crazy games. So I'm kind of like less confident, I guess, in G2 because of that, where it's like at a certain point, it's like what I was saying about T1, where at a certain point you see like enough bad performances, it feels hard to ignore, even though the team has so much history and has shown you that they can succeed so many times. So, I'm not worried about them against Pain by any means, but I just really want to see like, can this team get back to where they were, and can they be, that big threat against the big dogs in the tournament where everyone wants to see them.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think you mentioned the mid lane matchup, Meteos, so I think the top lane matchup as well. I think both solo lanes should be like pretty big advantages for G2, and then they're pretty good at using those advantages to open up the map. And I definitely will favor them as well here. And kind of like you're talking about, we're like tempering expectations for what they can do at Worlds. Of course, last year at Worlds, we NRG were the ones to put a stop to it, and be the heartbreakers. We kind of broke their hearts on that one, but maybe they're like a little bit more trepid in their hopes and expectations for Worlds this year. But it doesn't seem like that. It seems like everybody's still basically just as confident in G2 as in previous iterations heading into international. So I think I'm pretty confident as well, and it's going to be like that gradual increase. First the play-ins team, and see how that performance kind of indicates the direction.
Well, it's definitely going to be really exciting. We are about an hour and a half into this, and I think we are pretty much wrapped up at this point, unless you guys have any final things that you want to touch on.
I'm just going to go to sleep after this because I've been awake for like 20 hours now.
I'm going to eat dinner because it's like 10 o'clock. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm really excited for the kickoff of Swiss Stage. I assume you're going to be here for the start of Swiss Stage, right, Kobe? You got to be flying.
I'm flying on the 3rd, so I'm not even going to be there at the start.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be in the air. I'm going to have to try and get Wi-Fi and
see how we do. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. All right, well, it's going to be exciting. A lot of really good matches on day one, and Swiss is just such a good format that the matches kind of just get more and more competitive as you go on, because the losers play losers, the winners play the winners. I love the format, and especially that you can't even have the rematches now. I think that was a really good adjustment in the rules, because KT got kind of screwed by that last year, so that can't happen again this year. Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. That is going to wrap it up for this episode of The Dive, driven by Kia. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you find your podcast. Make sure to send us questions on Twitter with the hashtag TheDiveLOL. The Worlds is going to continue this Thursday, October 3rd at 5 a.m. Pacific. BLG going to be taking on MDK to kick that off. The LCS matches are estimated, of course, it depends on how long, if there's delays, whatever, for 9 a.m. Pacific with TL versus LNG, and 11 a.m. with FlyQuest versus GAM. Make sure to tune in, and remember, we're going to have dive episodes coming out each week after the stages. We're going to keep doing this, and we're going to try to bring in some international guests as well. I know Drake said he wants to be on. Hopefully we'll get Chronicler and some LCK guys and have some different guests throughout the World's competition. This should be a lot of fun. We'll see you all there.